Well, our representative up on the Hill, Senator David Pocock, is getting ready for another busy week up on the Hill. And as sitting today, being debated today, the Territory Rights Bill, something very close to his heart. Good morning, Senator.
Morning, Lish.
So how does it all work today?
Well, the Territory Rights Bill passed the House in the last sitting fortnight, so it'll be introduced into the Senate. It'll be in private senators' time, so there may not be a lot of time, and I imagine there'll be a lot of people wanting to speak to it. But it's a really important bill. This is the 9th bill that has been introduced trying to repeal the Andrews legislation, which 25 years ago stopped the territories being able to debate or legislate voluntary assisted dying.
So now if it's private senators' time, no doubt you've got the feelings from your constituents, you're taking those to the table. Have you also met with faith-based organisations as well?
I have. I've met with the Australian Christian Lobby and a number of concerned constituents. I understand that this is an emotive issue. My message to them is that the lobbying and the consultation should happen in our local parliament, at the Legislative Assembly. At a federal level, this is about territory rights. This is about restoring the rights of the territories to have the same rights as every other state has when it comes to debating and legislating voluntary assisted dying. In the 25 years since the Andrews Bill, we've seen every state debate and then legislate voluntary assisted dying. It's only the territories that aren't allowed to do that. That needs to change.
You're hearing from Senator David Pocock this morning, and I wonder, Senator, those faith-based groups, when you speak to them, what are their main concerns?
Concerns around, the moral question around death and who should be able to decide that. There was some polling out yesterday that showed, I think it was close to 70% of Catholics and even more of Anglicans now support voluntary assisted dying. People recognise that this is actually about dignity and giving people who are terminally ill choices at the end of their life to live, to die with dignity, for their family to be able to see their sort of pain and suffering relieved. And so there's been a huge societal shift, and now it's up to people in the Senate, and 72 of the 76 senators in the Senate represent states who have these rights, have debated and legislated them at a local level, and I'm asking them to allow the territories to have that same opportunity.
Are you doing that publicly, or are you doing a lot of private meetings as well to find where they're at and why they need to understand the ACT situation?
Doing both, having a lot of private meetings and calls, putting forward my case, listening to people's concerns, and we'll continue to do that right up to the vote.
On that, so the timeline for this, you're going to be sitting. When will a vote be made?
Really not sure. That's probably up to the government how much time they allow for this to be debated. If it remains in private senators' time, potentially towards the end of the year, maybe even next year, if there's a lot of senators who want to talk to it. So I'm obviously keen for people to be able to talk to it, but also to bring this to a vote so that we can actually fix, a quarter of a century old injustice.
Are you concerned that over that time there might be lobbying against it?
There'll certainly be lobbying. There has been a lot of lobbying, but this is something where we've seen a societal shift. People recognise that this is about dignity. It's about end-of-life choice, and it can actually be done in a way that has safeguards in place to ensure that we are protecting the most vulnerable people in our community, and having the rest of the country already debated and legislated it. The territories can then learn from them, can pick the best parts of the schemes around the country, and then obviously have our own consultation period.
You're hearing from ACT Senator David Pocock, just heading up for another big week on the Hill after last week, certainly our last week Senator with the Jobs and Skills Summit, talking about what that means for Canberra. And there was a lot of discussion about needing more land release for the ACT, well, the federal government to release more land, the old CSIRO station, as well as around Bruce and the stadium there. Will you be championing any of that?
Yes, it's something I've already had some conversations with the government about. Clearly, adding to supply is part of this. We have to add to supply in a way that doesn't just pump up the price of housing. So certainly something I'll continue to talk to them about. We are in a housing crisis here in the ACT and across the country. It's not working for people, and I really think that we need to have a pretty open conversation about housing in Australia. And
also, you were really pushing for calls to scrap the stage 3 tax cuts. It's pretty clear that that's not going to happen, certainly in this term.
Stage 3 tax cuts don't make any sense to me at a time when so many people are doing it tough, particularly frontline workers who've seen us through the pandemic, who are still on the front line of the pandemic, to then give out huge amounts of money to top income earners across Australia. There are bigger issues that I think we could use that money to actually solve, and one of them is around paid parental leave. I think having more shared paid parental leave has really good outcomes for kids, for families. And we're hearing from the government that they can't afford it, yet at the same time they won't entertain a redesign of these stage 3 tax cuts to actually be able to pay for this stuff that everyone across the country wants.
Yeah, it's the big issue of getting money in and then money out. But Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thanks, Lish.
Senator David Pocock heading up on the Hill again today as Parliament sits for another week. And a big part of the debate kicking off today is that Territory Rights Bill